There aren't that many things that are more interesting than watching a brand completely implode. Now, over the last year or so, we've seen plenty of brands implode due to bad decision making and lack of spine. Target is a great example of a brand that decided to completely shoot themselves in the foot in an effort to kiss the ass of the orange idiot in charge. That's something that is self-inflicted and is easily predictable. But there's another example of a brand implosion that's happening right now that is really difficult to explain, and that's the case of Southwest Airlines. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of Southwest's history, this was an airline that was hanging on by a thread in the 70s due to the fuel crisis, with many of their competitors doing whatever they can to survive, but also knock them out of business. That era in the airline industry was known for layoffs, cost cutting, and a top-down approach. Everything was buttoned down, and that was the model that worked for most of the major airlines to survive through that fuel crisis. Southwest went a different direction. Their CEO decided that they weren't going to do that. This was a CEO who was committed to his people and made a promise that he would run a company that never laid people off. So during the crisis, where all of his competitors were laying people off and cutting costs every which way they could, Southwest CEO had an all-hands meeting with all of the key people in the company, pilots, flight attendants, baggage handlers, and said, we're hanging on by a thread and we're going to need to do something drastically different or we're going to go out of business. And he said that he's not going to lay anybody off. And they landed on a handful of things that were brand commitments. The first thing that they committed to was a 10-minute turnaround. As soon as a flight landed and everybody got off the plane, that plane would be turned over in 10 minutes and ready to board and head on their way. So what their business approach relied on was quick turnaround time so that they could get more flight time and more flights across the entire company. They weren't going to cut their costs to a win. They were actually going to increase the volume of business and service that they were going to provide as a way to survive. In addition to that, they held firm to their commitment not to lay off. And that commitment to not lay off people continued into the 2000s. In the post 9/11 era, most airlines cut their staff, laid people off. Southwest refused to lay a single employee off. That's a level of commitment that you rarely, if ever, see in corporate America. In fact, at the first rumblings of trouble, it's common for CEOs to start whacking people left and right. I mean, in the last year alone, we saw over 1 million layoffs, and then this year it started off with thousands upon thousands of people being laid off almost on a weekly basis. Now, that strategy, quick turnarounds, never laying off people, was rooted in a core value of the company. If you take care of your people will take care of the business. And Southwest as a company lived that value for as long as we can remember. It had one of the strongest cultures within the airline industry that you can think of, and there were case studies done on the type of corporate culture that they developed built around that core principle. So when you think about how Southwest became a leader in the space, the formula for their success was really simple. Ruthlessly stick to your core values, focus on the most important things that you want to deliver, and lead on cost. And when you lead on cost, that doesn't mean that you're going to do things on the cheap and have a poor employee experience. You're going to find other ways to differentiate from your marketplace. So when you look at their formula for success and you look at what made them different, bags fly free, radically empowered employees, no assigned seating, a commitment to open new markets with point-to-point routing, no layoffs, and a brand personality that is radically different than the milquetoast corporate blue that you see all over the airline space, but also in corporate America. And that's how the airline built raving fans. And now we get to 2026. And what are they doing? They're getting rid of all of it. Bags no longer fly free. Southwest has laid off people. Assigned seating is there. Customer service is nearly non-existent. Every single brand promise that helped them build their brand has been wrecked under their new CEO. And when you look at what that new CEO is doing, the new CEO has dismantled everything that was unique about the airline and made it just like any other airline, and maybe even worse. And when you think about how that's going to impact the brand, everything that you talked about that helped you build the brand that got you here, all of those people that supported what you stood for are going to be looking elsewhere, because now you've made yourself look just like every other airline. And frankly, there are other airlines that do certain things that you're offering better than you do. So now, not only are you not standing out in the space that you own, you're just like everybody else, but you're a poor imitation in certain categories to your competitors. When you think about Delta, American, United, all of them have better footing in the spaces that you want to play in. And for whatever reason, their new CEO didn't connect the dots. So what you're going to end up seeing over the next several years is the implosion of Southwest Airlines. And it's an implosion of Southwest Airlines that didn't need to happen. There's a saying that goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, this whiz kid CEO that took over after decades of Southwest outperforming their competitors decided to change everything and go a different route. Now, time will tell if Southwest is going to survive this change, but it's highly unlikely that they'll make it out the other end, because they're making a massive cultural pivot. They're turning their back on everything that built their brand in order to be more like Delta, United, or American. Delta, United, and American already have their built-in customer base. The people that chose Southwest chose it for a reason, and they specifically chose it because they didn't want to go on Delta, American, or United. And when you make the pivot to be just like everybody else, the people that got you to this point are going to turn their backs on you because you turned your backs on them.